Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Absolute Batman issue 15 by Scott Snyder, Jock, and Frank Martin. The long-awaited reveal of Absolute Joker is here, and it's quite a doozy. Told from the perspective of Alfred, who has finally decided to reveal what he has learned about Joseph Grimm, the man who has been behind all of the Arkham stuff, and Bane, and pretty much all of the evil stuff going on in Bruce's life right now. As Jack arrives on his island with a bag full of weapons, Alfred reveals that he's been after this guy for 3 years, and he still doesn't know what is real and what is made up, with much of what he's found not really making much sense, like his islands, where for all intents and purposes, they are just nothing but bits of land out in the oceans of the world, with nothing in them or under them besides wildlife. But Joseph travels to them a few times a year. Alfred believes that he likes to hunt, but it's all just one big mystery. So yeah, right off the bat, we are getting some fantastic build up to the Joker here, reframing him as this world's twisted version of Bruce Wayne, a billionaire playboy who likes, traveling the world, doing rich guy things like hunting on his own private islands and stuff like that. Probably where he also does God knows what else on them, and hey, maybe we'll find out what he does on them a little later on in this issue. Bruce wants Alfred to just tell him what he believes this guy is, and before we jump into the origin, I just also want to highlight the ever wonderful Jock, who's joined the book for this issue as the artist and just is an absolutely fantastic choice to tell this Joker's origin. All of these Absolute Batman books have had great title cards, big double-page spreads that tell you the title of the arc that we're in, and this issue is no different, and I just love the title card of this issue because it's all like Alfred's papers spread around the table. There's like the red threads connecting them all, and if you look at it like at a distance, it makes the Joker smile, the big red smile with the two eyes. I just love that idea that's just been made in this sort of conspiracy board sort of thing. It just looks so damn cool. From the opening, we jump right into the history of not just Jack Grimm, but the Grimm family, as Alfred regales Bruce with the family's history beginning in 1888 with Jack's great-grandfather Joseph Grimm I, a child who was a street performer who performed as a clown, who Alfred shows Bruce on one of the very first films ever made. Alfred says that Grimm was good as a performer and made people laugh for blocks and blocks, although the boy never so much as chuckled. Eventually, he took his performance to vaudeville, made a bit of money, and invested it in his own company, Just Kidding, the very same JK that has been running in present day and is behind the backing of Arkham, amongst other things. Eventually, he amassed a fortune, earning him a spot in Gotham's elite clubs like the Five Gates Club and the Slaughter Select, where he met with other wealthy men like John Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie, gathering to discuss the progress and direction of the country. Despite all of this, there are almost no photos or interviews or records of the man at all, and even despite all his philanthropic work, buildings and hospital wings were never named after him, especially after he decided to devote so much of his funds to charitable work, especially for children. Okay, I'm loving what Scott Snyder is laying down here, exploring all of the Grimm families, setting up this kind of dynasty of evil, and it's a very real evil too, since right now the family seems, somewhat normal, just a rich guy who sometimes does charity work and things we've seen all the time in real life, where we see this stuff where there's, this guy's really nice and he's rich and he's giving money away, and then you find out there's that nefarious motive, after they die or sometime later in their life where it's revealed something evil has been going on, and this has been like the mask. That's what we're getting here, that kind of build up where you can tell something's not quite right, but you don't know what that is just yet. Eventually, Jack I died in 1938, buried in the family crypt in Gotham, and his son, Jack Jr., took over the family business in the 20s and expanded it out into entertainment that, according to the man, would bring laughter to the world, investing in something that would eventually become the television. Like his father, Jack Jr. continued helping children causes across the country before turning attention to cable networks in the 1960s, making channels primarily devoted to children's shows while also funding public broadcasting. I really like the concept of the Joker family being on the forefront of entertainment and its various forms throughout history, and the way it's explained, at least to me, there's almost this kind of supernatural thing happening here where the Grimms always win. They never lose at any of the deals or things they set about doing. They always are successful, hugely successful, and there's just something very like supernatural about that to me, where it's like, how much luck does this family have? Or is it more than luck? Is there maybe devil dealings going on here, maybe? In the 1970s, Jack Grimm IV was born and eventually took the company to new heights through gaming platforms and systems, expanding JK into a global cause. At some point in the 80s, Jack Grimm V, the Jack that Bruce and Alfred have been investigating, is born, and he becomes the most successful Grimm ever, being one of the first investors in online gaming, developing graphics cards and the computer processors, things that Alfred knows are in every single computerized device in the world. I don't know why, but I really find it funny to think of Joker as like, you know, the Nvidia CEO or something, you know, this guy just making graphics card, but it makes sense, like making computer parts and systems for computers is where the money is, you know, these things are in bloody everything that we use, phones, watches, rings, like just so much of our life is filled with computerized things, and getting into that business early would make him a fortune. It also keeps the Bruce Wayne comparison going, since Bruce has always been very tech forward as a person, since, you know, he mainly uses that technology as Batman. So I wonder if that's sort of the same thing going on here. Like, is Jack using that technology as Joker? Like, in some way, like, is he using that technology obviously for an evil purpose that's a parallel to Batman? Jack eventually becomes a trillionaire, continuing to expand JK's charities to involve international literacy programs, peace organizations, and medicine and food drops for starving and sick nations. Bruce asks where the smoking gun in all of this is, since so far, nothing seems scary about Jack Grimm. Alfred knows that on paper, there is actually nothing scary about him, and Jack is just a fifth generation of a family who's made a fortune embracing the clown and helping Americans, and while Jack comes off as eccentric, aren't all billionaires eccentric? Jack meanwhile does go on a hunt on one of his islands, spotting and being attacked by a mountain lion, grabbing the large cat by the throat and gutting it with his even larger Bowie knife. Jock's artwork here is just wonderful, and the way he draws Jack and his eyes, there's a big focus on like his eyes, like we get quite a few close-ups of Jack's eyes, and it's just these red and black looking evil circles sitting in a face that's rather handsome and a very Bruce Wayne-esque looking guy, so it's like very unsettling. It's pretty scary. Bruce, however, wants Alfred to spare him the American success story and tell him what he truly believes. So Alfred does just that, going back over the story of the Grimm family and telling Bruce that the first Jack was indeed a clown performer on the streets, but he used nitrous oxide from a nearby dentist's office to cause people to watch the show and laugh and become highly suggestible, making the people give him all of their money, making the act nothing but a trick and a sleight of hand con. When Jack eventually got more money, he funded his rivals, pitting them against each other, and eventually he did the same thing when World War II kicked off, funding every side, including the Nazis, to keep the war running and profits high. While I love all of this hidden history, war profiteering stuff, the one thing that stuck out to me about this, and I don't think it was mentioned in the first telling of this story, is that the first Jack performed his act in an alley. And, you know, this is the place of, birth of who he is and who he was and what he would become. Much like how in Bruce's life, or in a traditional Batman story, Batman's life is often defined by Crime Alley, as that's, where his mother and father were murdered, and that's where, the birth of Batman really did happen. It's a neat little comparison, and I quite like that. I like the idea that, the Joker was born in this alleyway while making people laugh and probably killing people in this alleyway through his act. The Grimms funded warlords and left and right-leaning news networks and eventually created Arc M, all in a bid to get power and become the most powerful people in the world. Bruce asks why and how much is enough for these people, but Alfred finds he always thinks about the Grimm family motto, live life like a clown, as Alfred knows that a clown plays a fool while making a fool of everyone else, and all the gold in the world isn't enough for Jack Grimm. Jack meanwhile happens upon a ramshackle building on the island, calling out to see if anyone is home, but no one answers. As Alfred says that what he just told Bruce is what he sent in his report to his superiors at MI6, Jack encounters a man who looks like he's been on the island for years. The man thanks God that someone else is there, revealing that he's been trapped on the island for 30 years. However, he soon realizes who Jack is as he comes closer to the man. Jack's eyes darken again as he tells the man to run. Now this is a really fucking cool idea. Joker does indeed hunt on his private islands, he's just hunting people. It's lifting heavily from Richard Connell's story The Most Dangerous Game and feeds into the whole rich guy doing weirdo evil shit that Joker is very clearly doing, and it just rules. It's so fucking cool to have a Joker who's basically Bruce Wayne. He's hunting people on an island. That's just so fucking cool. Bruce meanwhile doesn't care what Alfred reported, desperately wanting to know what Alfred truly believes himself about Jack. Alfred finally just gives up, knowing it's gonna sound crazy, but Bruce wants to hear it. Alfred reiterates his story for a third time, which to me feels like a sly Three Jokers reference. Like, now we have three separate stories for what Jack and his family and what the Joker could be, which is interesting. I like that whole idea. It's like, well, we don't really know what he is. He could be this, could be that. So he could be all of them. He could be none of them. Again, that's what really makes the Joker for me. I really like that idea. It's like, we never really know what he is, and it just keeps you guessing. Alfred says that the child clown in the alleyway did perform and didn't just gas people to get them to laugh. He killed them using strychnine to poison them, shaking their hands and allowing the poison to be absorbed through their skin. Jack meanwhile gets ready to chase the man on the island, taunting him as he takes off into the jungle. Alfred reveals that many who encounter the Grimms over the years have met bad ends, be it from vanishings, suicides, or mysterious illnesses. He says that an associate of his from the FBI in the 90s, named Harvey Harris, began investigating Grimm, but he too died in a boating accident. So Harvey here is actually a deep fucking pool, and I mean a very deep pool, since usually Harvey Harris is a mentor to Bruce Wayne. He's like a detective guy, and he's in some really early Silver Age stories where Bruce goes to him and wants to be mentored by him, but he doesn't want to mentor Bruce Wayne, so Bruce ends up dressing up in a prototype Robin costume and calling himself Robin, and that's where he comes up with the idea for Robin. It's weird Silver Age stuff. I think that was kind of retconned a little later on, where Bruce just used a fake name to get this guy to help him, but it's just like really weird, like early Batman history, and I'm all for it. I love that they just included this guy just as like an offhanded mention. It's so fucking cool. It rules. It shows Scott Snyder is using, you know, every part of the buffalo when it comes to Batman's history to fill out gaps in the absolute universe. Is just so fucking cool and really rewarding to see that sort of stuff. Alfred says that he knows that the Grimm have a far darker project at play, and he has found investments in some of the deadliest inventions in the world, like the atomic bombs and different bioweapons and viruses, with the Grimm men always reported laughing at these weapons tests, like they get some sort of sick pleasure out of the destruction. Jack meanwhile hits the man in the leg with an arrow from his crossbow, crippling him as he approaches him, his eyes changing into something else. Alfred meanwhile reveals that the islands Jack owns are used to house his enemies, and he believes that they are there until he feels like going hunting again. Bruce wants to hear what else he believes, learning that Jack uses children. First ones from the orphanages that the Grimm family would fund, and now Jack uses something else, using children for their stem cells to help make himself younger or keep his body in fighting shape. So we saw this stuff earlier when we first saw the Joker making his appearances, where he had these weird fetuses that he would attach to his body, and he would make himself look like young and handsome thanks to them, like he's kind of like living off of their life force, sucking their blood out to become something more. It's weirdo trillionaire rich guy stuff, which obviously in real life they're not sucking the blood out of fetuses, but we have that Brian Johnson guy who's like uses blood boys, uses his son's blood to like think he's keeping himself young with it. Just really weird shit that, billionaires do. It's just so weird, and I love that that's being brought in here, and I like they're not shying away from the fact that, like, yeah, this guy uses kids. Like, he lab grows children to basically steal their life force. That's really fucked up. Bruce just wants to know who this guy is, and Alfred knows that he's the Clown. Its whole act being a cruel mockery of humanity, and you can find stories all throughout history of clowns like Pagliacci, the jester who burns kingdoms. He believes the Clown is death, and believes that there is actually no Grimm family lineage. There has only ever been one Jack Grimm, and he's been alive this entire time. This is probably my favourite part of the Absolute Joker origin, that he is some evil ancient being that has been there always and has always taken on the visage of a clown or some type of like jester person, and has been like sowing chaos and fermenting violence throughout the history of the Absolute Universe. Kind of shifts away from the wacky clown man into something much more terrifying, and just it being hinted at that maybe Jack is ancient and maybe he's been around for thousands if not millions of years is so scary. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, maybe that's real, maybe that's not real. This is just Alfred theorizing what he thinks might be real, and I just love that. It keeps the overall mystery of the Joker. You never know what he is or who he is. Also, a theory I've been kind of kicking around is that Jack isn't just some monster that was bred on this earth by Darkseid, or, just like some type of monster creature. He's actually a demon. Or hell, he's even this world's version of the devil. Fits the bill pretty well, he's this guy who's like fermenting chaos and whatnot around the world, and like he's this ancient person, there's been, things around history about him and everything, and just kind of makes sense that he would be the devil, or like a version of the devil. Another really cool thing about all of these origins is that while we've had so much of this Joker's origin revealed to us, there's still so much left over. As I said before, you never know what is real, like which one of these origins is real. Are they all real? Are none of them real? Who knows? And that's what's really exciting, because it leaves us to be able to theorize about like what this Joker is, or come up with some sort of theory about like what he could be. Jack meanwhile transforms into his giant monstrous Joker form, attacking the man on the island, who I didn't mention before, but the man is revealed in dialogue to be Harvey Harris, Alfred's old friend who was dumped on the island because he was investigating Jack Grimm. As the grotesque Joker begins cackling and eating Harvey, Batman says that he's heard enough, wanting to leave to check on Wayland. Alfred tells him to be careful as Batman leaves, knowing that the kid didn't sign up for any of this, but in the last year, the world has cracked open and revealed its monsters to Bruce. He remembers catching Bruce watching a story about a woman in Gateway City who claims to be a magical god warrior from hell, and to his credit, Bruce keeps on moving and pushing forward. And yeah, I love that this Batman sees all this horrid shit in the world, and people like Wonder Woman and probably Superman is just like, yeah, I'm just going to go hit things real fucking hard with my big battle axe. He doesn't give up, and I quite like that about this Batman. Alfred wonders if he told Bruce about Jack for his own sake, but realizes pretty soon that he did it because he's a coward, and he couldn't live with him being the only one with this information anymore. Alfred knows that Jack is busy on one of his islands right now, but in reality, Jack has made it back to Gotham, catching sight of Batman as he glides across a rooftop, something that piques Jack's interest greatly. Getting inside his sports car, Jack drives to his sprawling manor, welcomed by his stalwart butler, who asks if he's hungry, but as we saw earlier, Jack has just eaten. Instead, he has plans to make, so he heads to his clock, turning the hands to 10:46, which open a hidden passageway down to his Batcave. So this final reveal is so cool, and just something I didn't see coming at all. Jack really is filling out the Bruce Wayne pieces of this universe. He has everything that Bruce Wayne should have, the money, the fancy cars, the butler at the house, the big manor, and now a bat cave. And I'm wondering why he has a bat cave, because while he's not outwardly like an evil guy, like, you know, he is powerful enough that he can just be openly evil and just deal with people who see what he does. So it makes me wonder, like, what's so terrifying that he's got to have a cave for it? Like, what is he doing down in that cave? It fucking rules, and I can't wait to explore more of the Joker in a couple more issues later down the line, since next Batman issue we're in the Wonder Woman team-up issue, which I'm very much looking forward to. Absolute Batman issue 15 was a fucking awesome origin to the new Joker. It takes the familiar villain and rips everything we know of him away and turns him into Bruce Wayne, essentially, which you figure wouldn't be too terrifying, but holy fuck does Scott Snyder manage to make it terrifying. Everything we learn about Jack Grimm in this issue builds on real-world witch people conspiracies, you know, blood boys, you know, rich people islands where they hunt people, as well as just classic comic book sci-fi stuff, while also flipping the script on what we think a Joker should be. I love the idea that we still don't know, despite a whole issue devoted to his origins, what is real and what is not about this Joker. It keeps us guessing, allows us to make theories up about what he could be, and leaves something a little later on for a big reveal somewhere down the line, which I'm really looking forward to. And I think because of all of that, I think this very well may be my favorite take on Joker to date. I am going to give this issue a 10 out of 10.